Jonas Brodin kept up a relatively elite level of play despite playing only 50 of 82 games last year. So that begs the question, at what point does the games missed exceed the play on the ice? We'll discuss on today's episode of Locked On Wild.
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is right around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we will evaluate the 2024-2025 season for Jonas Brodin and that delicate balance between performing on the ice and missing games. And we'll look at what the future could hold for Brodin and whether or not that future will be here in Minnesota. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, host of Seth on Sports, credentialed media member as well. And continuing with our player evals up until we flip and officially move on to the 2025-2026 season on September 1st, we're going to have 30 different topics, 30 things to discuss between September 1st and the beginning of October and the beginning of the season. So that's kind of our plan as we flip our focus. And each day we will tackle one burning question. It may be a player. It may be a unit. It may be a line. 30 different things that we will discuss between September 1st and the start of the season. So buckle up. It's going to be intense. But just wanted to look at a key figure on the Minnesota Wild's D-core. That, of course, being Jonas Brodin. And for Brodin, more of what we've seen the last several seasons. When Brodin plays, he performs at a high level defensively. The problem has just been the number of games recently has seemingly been going in the wrong direction. All things told, Brodin played in 50 games this past season. He scored 4 goals, had 16 assists, 20 points. He was a plus 10 on the season. And he had one power play or one shorthanded point, excuse me. His minutes on ice still relatively the same, 22 minutes, 57 seconds per night, 71 shots on goal on 178 total shots. So shooting percentage was 5.6%. 104 blocks in 50 games, 27 hits, then 21 takeaways and 53 giveaways. So for Brodin, more of a defensive defenseman, obviously, and has been one of the better as far as pursuit goes, one of the better individual defensemen in the entirety of the NHL. Like just ask Connor McDavid what his thoughts are about going toe-to-toe against Jonas Brodin. But the games played is starting to become a bit of an issue. Brodin has played one full 82-game season. He's played 70-plus games in 4 other seasons. And this year was the lowest amount of games that Brodin has played in a full season since he was 19 years old, and he played in 45 games in his first season in the NHL. And Brodin has not eclipsed 62 games the past 3 seasons, going 60, 62, and 50 over the last 3 years. It is starting to become, or may have already become, a concern. And that's not even taking into account the fact that we already know Brodin is going to miss the start of the season, at least 2 weeks to start the year. So there are more games that are going to be missed by Brodin. All things considered, as far as point shares go, Brodin had 3.4 defensive point shares in 50 games. If you equate this out to an 82-game season, that would have been 5.7 defensive point shares in a full 82-game season, which would have tied his career best. He had one offensive point share in 50 games, which again, over the course of a full season, would have been another career best. So the play is still there. The play is still in there when he is on the ice. He was in positive territory in expected goals for versus against. Corsi numbers for a defenseman are not bad. He ended up with a 45.5% from the Corsi perspective. Again, defensemen are never going to put up good numbers unless you're an offensive defenseman. You're never going to put up good numbers in those cases because you're always trying to stop the opposing player's best. And for Brodin, it's something that he has been doing for his whole career, essentially. Brodin in 5-on-5 play was responsible for 2.3 goals against per 60 minutes. That was a little bit of a jump from last year, but still very in line with his career numbers, and just continues to show that he's capable of locking things down when he is out there on the ice. Now, in the playoffs, Brodin had 1 point in the 6 games, 1 assist. He had 11 blocked shots, 6 hits in the 6 games against the Vegas Golden Knights. And, you know, the defense, and I would put a lot of this on the matchups. It just seemed like the Wild had more and more trouble with the top line as the series unfolded, albeit the fact that the top line was tasked with trying to shut them down for the whole series. But it just, as the series went along, as we have talked about extensively, just felt like Vegas continued to grab the upper hand, and there just weren't a ton of adjustments made to try to limit that. So for Brodin, all told, the numbers are pretty much right where they have usually been throughout the course of his career. Just again, you got fewer than 60 games in a season. So that is, it's going to require a legitimate conversation about at what point do you kind of jump. Yeah, this guy's really productive, but you know, we're dipping 50, 40 games. So then you're having to try to factor in who plays in the rest of those games that he doesn't. So we will, of course, grade Brodin's season coming up here in segment 2. And we're just going to take a look at what is on the horizon for Jonas Brodin as his Wild tenure continues. One of the longer tenured players on the roster right now. And, age 32, there are some question marks. So we will take a look at what sort of letter grade Jonas Brodin got for the 2024-2025 season. That is on the way as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Now, as far as MVP goes, I mean, it's always a safe bet to go with Justin Jefferson to maybe get a vote or two, or at least be Offensive Player of the Year. One award that I am really going to be interested in this year is Offensive Rookie of the Year. if you have not already, it might not be a bad idea to take a look at JJ McCarthy for that. Could end up paying big dividends if McCarthy has a great year for the Vikings. And if he does, then that means that the Vikings could be a potential dark horse candidate to go to the Super Bowl. So visit the FanDuel app and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to like and subscribe if you have not already, so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. And as I mentioned, we're going to line you right up to the start of the season with 30 things, 30 burning topics for the month of September. My grand master plan of how to take you right through, and it'll be varied. We'll change things up as we need to. We'll talk some Iowa, we'll talk some Minnesota. We'll hit a wide array of topics over the course of those 30 days starting September 1st. So be on the lookout for a little bit of a new look too. As far as the YouTube channel goes, cleaning things up a little bit. We're moving on to 2025, 2026, and some of the playlists that you see will give you some spoilers as to what we have coming up. So stay tuned and subscribe if you have not already. All right, let's take a look at Jonas Brodin's season from an evaluation standpoint. Our rubric that we have been using, it starts with the games played and the availability, because as I typed out here, availability is a skill, especially over the course of 82 games. Availability is a skill, and so it has to be graded accordingly. Brodin played in 50 games this past season. So if you look at the grading rubric, 50 to 64 games played gets you 10 points out of 20, roughly 50% attendance. So 10 points out of 20 for Brodin for the attendance factor. The grading, once again, fewer than 30 games played is 0 out of 20. 30 to 49 games is 5 points. 50 to 64 is 10. 65 to 74 is 15. And 75 to 82 is the full 20. I like that because I feel like if you play 75 or above, that's a solid season. And just with the amount of wear and tear that players get throughout the course of the year, you're gonna miss a game or two. But if you start to miss more than that, then that's where things get dicey. All right, on ice impact, stats, and context. On the defensive side, we don't go with the points per game. We go with the number of points. So for Brodin, he finished the season with 20 points, which gets him into the 5 out of 15 category. Fewer than 15 points is 2 out of 15. 15 to 24 is 5 out of 15. 25 to 39 points is 10 out of 15. And 40 and above is 15 out of 15. So 5 out of 15 as far as the points go. But if you look at the analytics side of things, Brodin had good numbers as analytically, considering what he was being tasked with as a top defenseman on this team. He played on the penalty kill, so he gets 10 out of 15 there. He doesn't play on the power play, and so there are no points to be had there, but plays on the penalty kill, and the analytics for him were good. They were solid, where his end up typically. So 15 out of 15, or 10 out of 15 there, which gets you 15 out of 30 for on-ice impact, stats, and context. Importance to team and role. This is 20 points based on where a player slots in the lineup and the structure of the team. I went with 15 out of 20 for Jonas Brodin, consistent top 4 contributor. And this, if you are wondering, well, how come you didn't put him in, the 20 out of 20 as far as being a elite top line producer, captain, or franchise core, games played. So Brodin gets the consistent top 6, top 4 contributor portion of the grading rubric, which is 15 out of 20 points. Consistency and clutch. Did this particular player show up when it mattered and maintain effort and production? I went with 9 points out of 15 here. And the grading criteria is hot and cold streaks or a playoff fade. I'm kind of going the playoff fade angle here again, just because it felt like the defense kind of lost contain as the series unfolded. In addition to the offense kind of starting to dry up as well. It was a perfect storm. And 10 to 15 out of 15 would have been consistent production and strong finish. And again, 32 games missed. I feel like I'm kind of harping on that, but for good reason. So 9 out of 15 for consistency and clutch. Growth, intangibles, and storylines. I gave Brodin a 9 out of 15. Maintained expectations, a steady veteran presence. I could not go with the highest category, which was a breakout season or a major step forward. It just was more of what we have come to know is the Jonas Brodin experience. 4 to 6 points would have been minor growth or no change. 0 to 3 points, underachieved, discipline issues, effort concerns. So Brodin gets a 9 out of 15 there. It was just another Jonas Brodin season, just with fewer games played. So all told, that gets Brodin to a total of 68 points, 68 out of 100, which on our grading scale is a C, and puts him in the tier of solid but replaceable. And again, there is a deliberate reason for not putting him in the B category, which would have been key contributor, 70 to 79 points. And it is games played. So the grading scale, once again, lower than 50 points is an F and a needs a reset. We have had one of those so far. 50 to 59 is a depth piece / disappointment. 60 to 69 is solid but replaceable. 70 to 79 is a key contributor. 80 to 89, elite and reliable. And 90 to 100 is the franchise cornerstone. So Brodin gets a 68, puts him in the C category, a solid but replaceable player. And it's amazing how many times it circles back to the one thing that matters, the one thing that just above all else matters for players like that and for players in general is the ability to stay on the ice. So when we finish today's episode of Locked On Wild, we're going to talk about just that. There's going to need to be a conversation at some point as to the future of not only Jonas Brodin, but the future of another key member of the Minnesota Wild defense, that being Jared Spurgeon. And so we'll lay out the options. We'll look at what is left on the contract and kind of where things stand with the defense right now. That's all on the way as we finish today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is also brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can go nuts on food, drinks, merch, or even a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. My favorite feature of Game Time is the panoramic seat views. You no longer have to play, what am I going to be sitting behind roulette when you purchase tickets for a concert or a sporting event. Game Time will show you exactly what you're going to see from your vantage point in the arena. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED ONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Coming up tomorrow, my good friend Jack Bushman of Locked On Blackhawks will be joining the show as we continue our Central Division crossover collisions to kind of move us through the offseason. So we'll talk with Jack tomorrow about Chicago. We will also be talking with Harrison Lee of Locked On Winnipeg Jets next week. And I think that's everybody then for the Central Division. We'll mix in crossovers throughout the course of the season as well. So stay tuned. More Locked On NHL hosts coming right up for you here at Locked On Wild. So let's talk about the long-term prognosis for Jonas Brodin. Brodin has 2 seasons left on his contract after this season. The cap hit is $6 million per season. Jonas Brodin is currently 32 years old. He is currently expected to miss the first 2 weeks of the season, which means that it's entirely possible that we have another season of 60-ish games for Jonas Brodin defensively. Now, that's one scenario as to how this can play out. But if we look at the schedule and just try to plot out kind of where things are at, the regular season starts on October 9th against the St. Louis Blues. 14 days later would be the 23rd of October. And at that point, that will be 8 games missed if Brodin misses the first 2 weeks of the season. If it is a third week, that gets you to October 30th. And that would be 13 games missed. So if it's a 3-week injury, Brodin is down to a possibility of 69 games played. Was always going to need to be a contingency plan, a baton pass, a changing of the guard for this Minnesota Wild D-core. And I don't think we're going to see that this year. But here's why we might see it this offseason. Brodin is obviously, as I mentioned, and the statistics back this up, he's still playing at a high level defensively when he plays. We haven't seen any sort of a decline in play. If we see the numbers start to, come back down the other side of the hill, in addition to missing games, that's trouble. That is going to be a big problem for trying to move on from that contract. And you have Zeev Buium for sure, bona fide going to take a top spot in the defense. Now, again, we got it with Brock Faber. We got it with Matt Boldy, too. It's not a regular occurrence to have players just jump right in and hit the ground running. It doesn't happen as frequently as we have seen it here in Minnesota. But the goal is to get Zeev to a top 4, borderline top 1 pairing within the next year plus. Get him acclimated, get him comfortable, and turn him loose. So that's one spot taken care of. David Jiricek, as we have talked about all offseason, this is going to be a big season for him. Coming off of an injury that shut him down at the end of last season. Thought he looked really good when he played up in Minnesota. And there is a real opportunity, I think, for him to win a spot out of camp, to take with Brodin out of the lineup. There's a chance for him to win a spot and then force a tough decision when Brodin comes back that likely moves Zach Bogosian to 7th defenseman. And if he does, there's another opportunity to fill a spot defensively that could come available. Brodin has no trade protection on his contract. So of the two, Brodin's is the most movable. I will say Jared Spurgeon has just a 10-team no trade list. So his is movable as well. Spurgeon has 1 season remaining after this year at $7.575 million. We're going to get to Jared Spurgeon's season evaluation, and we're going to probably talk about this exact same thing. But for Jonas Brodin, it feels to me, in just looking at how this could potentially set up, if we get big strides and good seasons from Zeev, Buium, and David Jiricek, and someone along the lines of Carson Lambos or any of the other young defensive prospects really take a leap forward this season, I think we'll see one of those two moved next offseason to free up some money and to try to avoid, because if, like I said, if we start to see the statistical decline, the analytical decline of Jonas Brodin or Jared Spurgeon, in addition to the durability concerns, immovable. Unless you go to like the Ducks or something. They become much harder to trade because that's going to be the one thing that teams would be attracted to, is they're still performing at a very high level. So then you are willing to, play them lower in the lineup, and maybe you can take a little of the wear and tear off. That would be another way that this situation plays itself out, is if Zeev Buium excels and accelerates his development, and if David Jiricek shows himself capable of being a consistent NHLer, maybe you can take a little wear and tear off of Jared Spurgeon and Jonas Brodin so that they're not getting injured all the time. That would be one way to potentially limit, but we just have to acknowledge too that as you get older, you become less durable and the injuries pile up and it becomes harder to recover injury to injury. That's just part of the natural cycle. But I think there is a real possibility that if we see another solid season from both Brodin and Spurgeon that involves some games missed, we could see it at least explored this offseason. I had kind of floated it just because it made sense to me in my head. It's a very young decor in Buffalo. The Sabres have a very young decor, and Brodin could be a mentor to that whole group and could come in and fill a potential spot on that grouping. Your oldest defenseman in that group is something called Jacob Bryson, who is an unrestricted free agent and 27 years old. Michael Kesslering's 25. Connor Timmins is 26. Matthias Samuelson's 25. Bowen Byram's 24. Owen Power's 22. Rasmus Dahlin's 25. That's a young decor in Buffalo, and they may want to add a little veteran experience to that group. It could be a possibility. I'm not saying it happens, but I'm saying that we are rapidly approaching the point where if the games missed continue to mount, that you just have to look at other things. You just have to look at other options, because at some point the other side of the game is going to start to decline for Jonas Brodin, and then you're dealing with both as opposed to dealing with one and not having to deal with the other. So Brodin is, like I said, he's still producing. He is still performing at a solid to high level. There's a big difference between playing 50 games and playing 70. And that's the biggest concern right now. So let us know in the comments section. Do you think this is something that the Wild need to take a longer look at. Is it time to try to bring somebody else in to play more games, maybe a little younger? Are we getting towards the end of the line for Jonas Brodin in Minnesota? Let us know in the comments what you think, and we will catch you for the next episode. Coming up tomorrow, again, Jack Bushman of Locked On Blackhawks will be joining the show to talk about what we are going to see with Chicago here coming up. They've got Connor Bedard trying to build around him. Will they take a step forward this year? Time will tell. That will do it for today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day.